everyone. Welcome to week 4 of the Larimer SBDC Early Childhood Business Training. Wow, last week was packed full of valuable information. I hope you all were able to pull something useful from Andy and Connie's presentation and that you were able to complete the next 2 sections of your action plan. Now that we've talked about legal and insurance, let's move on to the next topic, finance and bookkeeping. This week you'll be watching a presentation created by David Secunda. During this presentation, you will learn more about budgeting and you'll gain access to a tool that can be used to help you manage your finances. While watching the presentation, take notes regarding what areas you would like to improve and think about how you can use the bookkeeping model for your own business. Once you've completed the video, play around with the center or home-based model so you can gain a better understanding of your own bottom line. After working with the model, consider what goal you may have regarding your business's finances. When we meet at our next session, we will have time to explore the models together as a class and discuss any questions you may have. I look forward to seeing you all again soon, and of course, again, if any questions come up, please feel free to send me an email. Talk to you soon.
Only about 80% of centers were operating using some kind of a budget tool. And so we've made a very simple template that has a lot of preloaded information for you to quickly look at what profit and loss would look like for the center in different scenarios, if you're charging different amounts, different numbers of kiddos, that sort of thing. And then we're also at the bottom going to show you how to run different scenarios. Such as my enrollment goes up 10% or it goes down 10%, or I increase my daycare rates or those sorts of things. So this model is one that's set up to be able to allow you to kind of run all of those different sorts of things. So when you get this link, first of all, there's no way you can screw up the model. So you're not going to be able to actually work in the original version. The very first thing that you're going to need to do is make a copy. So this is all in Google, so it looks just like Excel or Google. So under File, you're going to click Make a Copy, and this way you can create your own copy, which will be your very own, and it will not have any access to anyone else. No one's going to see your numbers. If for some reason you kind of feel like you've broken the model, you can always go back to the original one and save another version of it. So right now I've kind of created a copy for myself. And now what I'm going to go in and do is just kind of talk you through what this has here. So basically, this has, let's see, 3, 4, 5 sections to it. Okay. The first one is going to ask you some basic questions about your organization, and that will automatically drive a bunch of numbers in the model. The next one here is going to ask you to give some numbers that you either have or expect to have as far as enrollments are concerned, and what rates you're charging for different age groups. It'll also ask you about part-time and other sources of revenue. So this is kind of laying out how your business, either you want it to work or how it is working today. And then the next piece down here, we'll talk about expense assumptions. And so this is going to look at how much you're paying your staff, and then also the maximum ratio of maximum children per staff. So it's preloaded on the minimum number of staff, which many centers run with, but also many centers say we're going to look for a better ratio or a higher ratio, and this will allow you to put that in there as well. And then it'll ask you to add any additional staff that you have, as well as any expenses that you have down here at the bottom. And I'm going to go back and run through this slowly, but I just want to give you an overview, lay of the land. And then at the very bottom here, it's going to say, okay, if all the stuff above is true, then here's what your net income is, either a loss or revenue on a monthly basis and on an annual basis. Okay. And then down at the very bottom, it'll let you run different scenarios very, very simply. So increases or decreases in enrollment, increases in your rates, the wages, all of these things. It'll let you play them out and see what would happen to your bottom line if you made those changes. So you don't have to go back and tweak all of the different numbers in the model. Now, when you look at this at a high level, you can see that there's a bunch of stuff in blue and a bunch of stuff in white. The only things that you need to touch are the cells, the areas that are in blue. Everything else will automatically calculate. So as you walk through this, you can kind of just look at the areas that are in color, in the color blue, and either estimate or use your actual numbers for that. Okay, so in just a second, I'm going to go back up to the top and I'm going to run through this line by line. First of all, it's going to ask for your quality rating, and this is going to determine CCAP reimbursement rate if you have CCAP students. So that is worth loading in your quality rating if you have that. And then the county that you're located in. And this has all of the counties in Colorado. And what this will do is it will load the living wage for your county. Okay, it's not going to automatically say that you're paying living wage, okay, but it's going to give you that number as a goal to see if you can get your hourly team up to living wage overall. And then are you reimbursed through the CFP food program? Yes or no? If you say yes, then a little further down, it'll ask for how much you get per month. And then do you have any other grant assistance? And for this, anything on this model, exclude one-time assistance, exclude one-time payments. This is all looking at, do you have a business model that will be sustainable over time? And so we're not looking at one-time things whatsoever. So if you got a grant, you should not include it on here if it just came one time. If it's an annual grant that happens every year, or you're part of a larger nonprofit that gives X dollars annually, you can put it in there. And then do you participate in any other subsidy? Yes or no? And if you put yes, it'll just ask you down below, well, what is that and how much do you get? Okay, so these are the basic business questions here at the top. Then the next piece goes down and it just says, okay, if you're already running your center, what are your rates? And if you're not running it yet, what are you contemplating to use as your rates? Okay, so this is really like a blank canvas for you to go in. You're going to set the weekly rates and then the estimation of the total number of kiddos enrolled in each of these different age groups. And then if you either have or are planning to have CCAP kids, you can put their numbers in here as well. So this allows you to play with the CCAP numbers to see, if you can still get to the bottom line that you need to get to if you're adding or removing CCAP participants as well. So this is all for full-time kiddos. And then the next section down says, okay, what do you got for part-time kiddos? So up here, we're saying the weekly rate. Down here, we're saying, what is the daily rate that you're charging for these different age groups, 0 to 18 months, 18 to 36 months, et cetera, et cetera. And then what is the number of days per month that you have kids in these different rates here? So if you have, 20 days, that would mean I have, one 0 to 18 month old for 20 days in the month. Okay. And so this is the total number of days of part-time kids. And then if any of those are CCAP kids, you fill that number in there. So that's on the revenue side, that's kind of driving the top line. And then the other revenue section, again, it's going to ask for those things that recur every month. And this is very important to only use recurring revenue, those things that happen every month. So here at the top, I said I did get a CFP food reimbursement, and I'm going to put in the monthly amount here. In this case, I'll use $400 as an example. And then if there are other recurring revenues, I could put them in here. And then I've been out of CCAP for this last year. What is the current for CCAP? Are they reimbursing on just attendance or enrollment? Anybody know?
Yeah, it's enrollment, and right now it's 7 absences a month.
Okay, got it, that they'll pay.
That
So,
might also depend on the county you're in as well.
Probably, yes.
okay, got it. So this number here is a way that we kind of put it in the model to play with it. So when I made the model, CCAP was only reimbursed for attendance. And if the kiddo wasn't there, you know, you're out of luck. And so this cell here was saying, okay, well, for your typical CCAP kid, how many days are they not there that you do not get paid? Okay. So right now, if there's full reimbursement, you can say that's 0, as long as you don't have kids that are over those 7 days missed per month. So I think that would be a good place to start. And then the next 2 areas are other unpaid absences and bad debt. So other unpaid absences, think about up here, if we're saying I have 11 kids that are full-time between 0 and 18 months, the assumption that this will put in here is that you have 11 kids in this age range for every single month in the year. Okay, and so we all know that doesn't always happen. So this is kind of asking like, okay, out of all of those kids, approximately what percentage of do you have of unanticipated vacancies? Meaning you have, you know, maybe 10 kids for 1 month because a kid is traveling, or you have, you know, 8 kids for a couple months because you have some spaces that are unfilled, etc. So that'll allow you to make an estimate there. And then also bad debt. This is just money you build that never comes to you. You know, what is the percentage there? So we've gone through and we've put together the business questions and the revenue assumptions. And then it'll ask for expense assumptions. And this comes in and says, okay, here is the living wage for your area. I used Alamosa. And so it said $16.53 is the living wage for a single adult with 0 children. And let's say in this particular example, I'm paying $16.50. And so I'll put that hourly wage in there. And then again, this is where I get to set my ratios overall. So it's going to be set by licensing, the minimum ratio. And so you can just use the same number and just say, I'm going to go with the legal minimum for all of my ratios. But if you push higher than the legal minimum, then this is the place where you set the maximum children per staff member that you have chosen to do in your business model. And that just might be a differentiator for you if you want to have a better ratio than is legally required. But if you want to go with the minimum, you could just use the same number right here and you know, and go straight across. Okay. Then the hours per week of those folks working with the different age groups. And then down here, it is going to allow you to put in additional staff needed. So this is where you would put in your manager, your director, for example. I have them in at $25 an hour at 40 hours a week. I might put in an additional daycare staff member here. Right now I have this loaded at 0, so it's not going to give me any numbers here. And then this will automatically load based on the number of part-time enrollees that you have, to just say, okay, in addition to your full-time staff, you have some additional needs that are going to be driven by the part-time kiddos that you have. And so that will automatically calculate there. And then down at the bottom, it's going to ask you to fill out all your expenses. And this is what what you pay on a monthly basis or what you estimate to pay. So when you download the model, when you look at the model, there are going to be numbers in there. You change them all. These are just some baseline estimates from a daycare center, but they they for sure don't match yours. So change them away as you take a look at that. Now, when you get all of that in there, then what this is going to say is like, at the end of the day, after paying the director, and you said, for example, you're the director, so you might have that salary there. But after paying the director, here's what the net income or loss is going to be on a monthly basis and an annual basis. Per month, $500, almost $600, and per year, almost $7,000. Okay. And then at the very bottom here, you get to play around and see like, hey, how would these various changes affect the bottom line? So let's say my enrollment went up by 5%. Now, the interesting thing here is that depending on how your enrollments go, it may or may not increase your bottom line, because it all depends where those ratios fall and if you have full classrooms or not. So if you increase it a little bit and you don't, and you're not getting to see an increase, it's because with that greater number of enrollments, you end up not having a full classroom. And so it actually ends up being less profitable as an organization. So it's something always to play with. Like the most profitable you can be is with full classrooms that are aligned with your ratios that you intend. And as soon as you push over that, sometimes it is better not to open another classroom, but to hold right where you are until you get a good waiting list and you can open a classroom close to its capacity, if you even have the facility to do that. So again, this allows you to take a look at what would happen if you changed enrollments. If you increase your part-time enrollments, that's another way to take a look at that. What would happen if you did your part-time enrollments up 5%? Well, that actually drops straight to the bottom line in a more positive fashion than if you increased your full-time enrollments. That's why the models are tricky, because you got to really look at the capacity of each of those classrooms. And as you push again into a low attendance in a new classroom, it gets much less profitable overall. The other things here, if you increase your daycare rates by let's say 5%, it's going to show how that drops to the bottom line. So a 5% rate increase is going to drop $21,000 a year to the bottom line there. If you increase employee wages by, let's say 10%, it's going to be, you're going to have a $40,000 impact negatively from where you were before. So again, this just allows you to get in there and just try all of these different scenarios and see what they do. How about if you decrease your overall expenses by 5%? Drop expenses by 5%, it brings $26,000 to the bottom line. So the reason we made these different scenarios here is once you get your model, and you might put this together with what you're actually doing already, this will allow you to see where to put your effort, really. Like, boy, is it more worthwhile to try and cut expenses or add a few part-time kiddos, or add a few full-time kiddos, or, et cetera, et cetera. What might all of that look like? So I've just said a lot there. Let me pause there. The home-based financial model here. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen. Just one second here. All right. Okie dokie. Pull this up here. Everyone's picture in the right place. All right. So first of all, the link that I'm going to give everyone at the conclusion of this class takes you to a little video tutorial. Okay, so awesome if you capture things as we go through it this evening, but if you don't, it's all right here. Okay, so you don't have to worry that you're gonna miss something and need to write copious notes. So better to just soak it in as we go forward. So on the link that I give you, it's going to have a little play button, and when you hit play, once again, it's a 5-minute video, and it's going to walk through exactly what I'm going to do with you this evening as a reminder. And then at the bottom of this, it has the link to the actual model itself. So the link I'll give you will be to the video, and then on the video at the bottom here, it has the link to the childcare home model itself. It also has a couple other helpful links down there at the bottom. So this is the home model. And let me just say a couple things before we jump in here and talk about what you can do with this. I'll re-echo that when we did our survey during the pandemic, about 40% of childcare homes didn't have any kind of a budget at all. They set pricing by looking at what other people were charging and just kind of drew a line in the sand and were surprised when they either made money or lost money, but it wasn't that there was a lot of clarity on this. And so, as I'm sure you have been really focused on talking about in this class, it's so important to think about your childcare home as your childcare business. It is your business, and to hold it in the context of that business. And so creating a financial model is kind of like pulling out your map on your phone when you're going someplace. It makes it a lot easier to get where you're going in a really predictable way. So I highly recommend using either this or some other kind of a model to think about your pricing. The other thing, and I'm not going to talk too much about this, I know it will be discussed at other points in the class, but an extremely important piece of running your childcare home is what's called like just the segmentation of business from personal expenses. What does that mean? It means don't use one bank account and put everything in there, personal and home, and then try and kind of parse it out from there. The way childcare homes make money is they take full advantage of the tax deductions and other deductions that are available to you because you're running a business out of your home. And if you really conflate, if you're not tracking your actual home expenses versus the childcare home expenses, you cannot take full advantage of that. It will make it really hard to have a sustainable business. So again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this, but the importance of, at the very minimum, having just a separate bank account that you use for your childcare revenue and expenses, and you write checks out of that to your own personal bank account when you need to move money over. At a very minimum, that's going to be kind of a best practice on segmenting there. All right, so that's my soapbox on that one. Let's talk about this model here a little bit. So it's made to be not intimidating. Okay, that's the goal. The goal is for it to be super usable. Everything in blue is for you to fill out. Okay, and don't worry, you can't break the model. Okay, it will not let you actually work in this model. So the very first thing you're going to do is go under File, and you are going to make a copy. And that way you have a copy that is just yours. It's just going to be your home numbers. Nobody else is going to see it. You can do anything you want to it. And if some point you realize that you've broken something, just go back to the original one and save another version of it. So don't worry on this one. This is really just to allow you to get in there and poke around. Now, all the instructions are in here, as well as in that little video that is the precursor on it as well. But again, everything in blue, you got to think of it as just like a series of interview questions. And it's divided, this model is divided into 3 sections, okay? The first section here asks you general questions about your business, okay, and what you think it's going to do. And I'll go back and we're going to run through each one of these sections. The second section then says, based on what you just told me up here, this is what I recommend you to charge for different age groups. Okay. So again, in the first section, it's going to be like an interview. It's like, how much do you need to make? How much do you think you're going to pay? And then based on that, the model is going to say, okay, well, in order to do that, this is what you got to charge. And so really the second section here, there's nothing to fill in. You can see there's nothing in blue, but this is going to give you the results, I'll just say, if all of your estimates in this first section were true. And at the very, very bottom, it's not only going to have net income per month and per year, but it's also going to give an estimate of what that would mean for you in take-home pay at the end of the day. So this will help you get ahead of the curve and just, you know what you need to make at the end of the day, rather than just waiting to see if you make it. This is going to let you know what you need to charge and how many kids you need to have in order to arrive there. So once again, first section will ask you some questions. Second section will say, well, if those are true, this is what you got to charge. And then the third section, this is kind of your, it's your place to go in and actually put in what you are going to do. Okay. And so this lets you actually put in the rates that you've decided to charge. So our model might say you charge this, you might go, oh, I can't charge that, or I'm going to charge a little more than that. This is where you put in your actual numbers here, and then your actual expenses. And once again, at the very bottom of the page, it's going to say like, okay, here's what you're going to make at the end of the day. Okay, I'm going to go back to the beginning and we'll go through this and actually give some examples on it. Before I do, let me just pause, see if there are any high-level questions like, what the heck is this? Why are we doing it? Or anything like that. Like any high-level questions before we kind of run through it. All right. Tina, you had a question.
I had a question because wouldn't this depend on what county you live in also?
Yes, it does. So that's a great question. And let's start right here. So the first two questions, one is what's your quality rating? And then what county are you located in? Okay. And so
Sorry, didn't see that.
No, it's all good. So the quality rating is going to determine your CCAP reimbursement rates. And the county is going to be both CCAP reimbursement rates as well as it's going to tell you living wage. Okay. It's not going to say you have to pay a living wage, but it's going to say, like, if you have somebody working for you or you're working for yourself in your county, this is what it says that you need to make at a minimum. And we've loaded up like a single, I don't have any kids living wage. So it's just a point of comparison there. Now, the thing I will say is living wage, we just updated yesterday, so I know it's updated. CCAP, I do not have the latest CCAP rates in here, so you can use it as an estimation, but just know that the most current CCAP rates are not loaded in here, so they might vary a little bit on this. I'll go through it then. So quality rating, I'll put a 3. County, I'll put Alamosa for this one. Are you reimbursed through the CFP food program? Anybody know what that is? I see that. Okay, Lisa, what is it? Can you just give a quick high level? Oh, you're muted there.
Sorry, my cursor wasn't working. I am part of the Wildwood food program. And so right now, most of us are still on a pandemic level. So there's tier 1 and tier 2, depending on, anyway, so we're on the pandemic. I think that means is it tier 1? It's the highest one. Is that 1 or 2? Do you know?
Tier 1. Got
okay.
it.
So it's a percentage per child that you have to make sure you log in each kid each day. So let's say you have 4 that show up one day, you only get reimbursed for those 4 who are there for breakfast. You get 2 meals and a snack
Got
each
it.
day.
And so just in general, do you have an idea of, on a monthly basis for your particular home, what amount do you get back per month, just as a general estimate?
So I'm still new at this and I only have 4 kids a day at the moment.
Mhm.
And I get about $350 a month back in food.
Awesome. Okay, great. So basically up here, it's going to say, are you participating in the food program? And if you say yes, then down here, it's going to say, hey, what's the monthly estimate of what you're getting? Okay, so it's just a way to log that in to see what it does to the bottom line. Now, the thing to realize here, this is really, really important. This is probably the most important distinction. Everything you put in this model is only recurring expenses or recurring revenue, meaning things that happen every single month or every single year. So if you have a one-time grant, and there's a ton of pandemic related funding out there that came one time and it doesn't happen again, don't put it in the model. The model is here to help you understand what your home needs to look like on an ongoing basis without one-time assistance in order to make the money you need to make. Okay. All right, so let's say you're participating in the food program. Do you receive any grant assistance? And again, this would only be grant assistance that comes in every single month, not just one time. Do you have any other subsidy programs? Yes or no? If you say yes down here, it'll just say, well, what is it? And how much do you get every month? So then what is your target monthly compensation as the business owner? So this is just basically saying like, hey, what do you need to make on a monthly basis? Because this is going to really be one of the important drivers of how much you have to charge. And if you put in the month amount that you need to make, it's going to give you a quick estimate of what your take-home pay would be. Okay, so if you're making $2,900, your take-home is going to be about $2,175. Something like that. So it's a way, again, to look at it and go, okay, well, is that number times 12 enough for me? And if not, adjust the number, because for you to stick around as a home provider, it has to be a sustainable business. It has to be a sustainable business. It does not serve you or your parents, your kiddos' parents, if you create something that after a year, you just throw up your hands, you go, I just can't do it because it's not sustainable. So that's where you put in how much you need to make per month. Do you have any employees? So in this case, I said, yes, I have one employee. They work 10 hours a week. Okay. But I could also just say, no, it's just me. It just depends on how many kids you have in your home. Most home providers, it's just themselves, but a number of them also have an employee and a number of hours per week. And then it comes down and says, hey, what is your full-time enrollment target? So let's say, my enrollment target is 5. Okay. Then it's going to say, well, how many kids in each of these age ranges in order to get to your total enrollment of 5? So it's telling me right here, hey, these numbers don't add up. You said that you want 5 kids, but these numbers add up to 6. So there's a problem there. So let's go with 4 here just for a moment. And Lisa, I'll go back to you for a second. What are the ages of the 4 kids that you currently have in your home?
18 months, 2 years old. There's 2 of those, and a 3-year-old.
Okay, great. And let's see, somebody had a question. You had your hand up just a moment ago. Yeah, Amber.
So going back up to the employee section that you were talking about, if we are paying ourselves as a W-2 as well, would we be putting ourselves as a yes there too? So for instance, I would say yes because I have 2 employees myself and then one my assistant.
No, this is only going to be, so you're covered here in this one. And so this is only going to be, it says here, do you have any employees?
Oh, excluding yourself.
Yeah.
I missed that little section.
Yeah, no worries. They're small. I have my readers on so I can see that one. Great. Great. So now we come down and we've done our 4 people there. And then the next one is of those 4, do we have any CCAP kiddos? And again, this is saying there's an error here because I said I have a 18 to 24 month old who's a CCAP kid, and up here I said I got 0. But Lisa, using your example, do you have any CCAP kids or no? No. Okay, great. So I'll just say for these purposes 0. But this is a model that would allow you to try it out and see what it might mean for you. And now, right now, CCAP reimburses 100%, meaning when I made this model, CCAP only reimbursed on attendance, not enrollment. So if your kid wasn't there 15 days in the month, you didn't get paid for those 15 days. Now, and it varies some by county, CCAP does reimburse up to 7 days of missed daycare per month. And so you can kind of set the average absent rate of 0% as long as your CCAP kiddos are below the 7 days per month. And then here's this really important one, and that so many folks don't think about this. This is saying, what is your average unpaid absence rate for tuition enrollees? Okay, so think about it this way. Lisa, you talked about having these 4 kiddos, and the expectation is you'll have 4 kiddos for 12 months in the year. Okay, but what if 2 kids took a month off in the summer, or 2 months off in the summer, or one of the kids moved away and you had 3 months when you only had 3 kids? So this is just basically saying, hey, out of that whole year, if you're aiming to have this many full-time kids, 4 full-time kids for the whole year, what percentage of that in reality do you think you're not going to have a kid in that seat? It can be whatever you think. It could be, I'm using for this example, 8%. You might put 10%, 5%. Sorry, my dog wants dinner. I'm realizing that we'll have to wait a few minutes. And so, again, that's just where to reflect that there. So it's a realistic budget. And then we've put in your food reimbursement amount here, and that's all you need. So then based on this, it's going to come back and say, okay, well, here are the recommended minimum weekly rates per kid. And again, it's kind of based on just those standard numbers up above there. Okay. And then it will kind of lay out an entire profit and loss statement for you using standard home numbers down here. It'll say, okay, well, like these are the numbers based on these sorts of expenses. And then down at and then at the bottom of the, so sorry, I'm gonna ask my dog to step out. So at the end of the day, it's going to say this would be your take-home pay based on the above there. Now, again, these are just general estimations. So once you do that, it allows you to come down to section 3 and really try it all out and just say, okay, well, that's an estimate up above, but if I'm actually running, what are my actual weekly rates that I'm charging? And, if this is the living wage, what is the actual wage that I'm paying to my other employee, for example? And so this is just allowing you to put in your real monthly expenses. Again, this is based on averages in section 2. And this puts in your actuals here once you get going, and it'll give you numbers down at the bottom. So in general, the way we see people use this is before they start a center, they're playing around with numbers by doing this first section and saying, what do I think it's going to look like? What do I think I'm going to have in this childcare home? And if all these things in section 1 are true, then your childcare home is going to give you these results in section 2. And then once people get going and they start running their home, then they put their real numbers in section 3, and they can do it after a couple months, and it'll give an idea of where the whole year is going to end up. So let me pause there and just open it up, see if there are questions or other things people want to dive into.
I have a question.
Yes. Mhm.
So when you get down to your net income, your pre-tax income, then you do the 25, but that doesn't include any of your write-offs against your taxation, correct?
Correct. Yes. And there is in this copy up here, let's see. So it says here, any allowable business expense paid by the business will reduce your personal mortgage or rent or insurance or utility or repair expenses. This is an added benefit in addition to your target compensation.
Right. So to get a real picture, you should then take that number and then look at what your write-off amounts are going to be and reduce that percentage of your taxation if you have that level.
That is correct.
That's what your accountant does, right? That's what your accountant does.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly. And so I'm on this one, I'm trying to keep it pretty basic, but you are absolutely right. Like when you're turning the screws on this one to really understand what you're making. And really, I think the most important thing is if you're starting a new home, you want to make sure that in your first year or so, you're sustainable. Like you're charging what you need to charge to make sure that you are going to be a business for the upcoming years. And then as you move forward, and Christine, I can hear from the types of questions that you're asking, you're optimizing. You're looking at like, well, how can I get all of the maximum write-offs for my home in order to reduce expenses on the other side, or to write checks from my childcare account into my personal account to for everything from rent, quote unquote, to repairs and those sorts of things. And so yes, to get the true full picture, that's where you need to go.
Thank you for participating in this online learning opportunity from the Larimer Small Business Development Center. Before you leave, why don't you schedule a free consulting session with one of our professional business consultants? You can request your appointment right from our website. While you're on the website, be sure to check out all of our upcoming programs, events, and workshops that we'll be offering in the near future. To stay up to date with all that's happening at the Larimer SBDC, we invite you to join our email list and to follow us on your favorite social media platforms. Remember that we are here to help you start, build, and grow a successful business.